All right, now it's 10 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
Let's get this started. Well, good morning, everyone. And welcome to the Community Advisory Board, our general meeting. And we usually start off with, in this Zoom format, that we really want to do a roll call so that we can establish that we have quorum. Even before we do the roll call, I'm Michael Pitts, I'm the chair, and I do have the, I don't know if authority is the right word, but to designate one of our alternates as a voting member for this meeting. And so Dale, you will vote on all voted items on this meeting, since we do not have all of our board members here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And Nicole, can you do the honors? You are Monique.
Yes.
You know who.
Yes. Ozzy,
Present.
Shayla,
Here.
Crawford.
Here,
Don't see Devon on yet. Jonte?
You know, at the same time, we want it to be authentic. So don't make it.
Hold on, let me mute someone here. Jonte,
Here.
Lila,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Dr. Hernandez on. Don't see her yet. Nakenya. Don't see her on yet. Nicole. Are you on mute?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. I think Terrence will be on shortly, and Dale
here.
and Mark.
Here.
That's everyone that we have for members. Did you want other folks to introduce themselves in chat?
Yes, I see some folks, they're veterans. They've already started doing that, but if you could,
Okay.
please introduce yourself in the chat for the record. All right, and at this time, there's a opportunity for any announcements.
See Jana's hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole and Michael. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I am happy to announce that the Office of Ed and Game Plan for Success are now back inside the jails. It is not, Michael's clapping his hands. It is not a normal day at the jail. So we're physically on site, which will help us expedite, obviously, school courses and reentry courses to folks. The GPS team will be able to meet with vaccinated folks to plan for their reentry in person. And we will be able to meet with unvaccinated folks in the visiting center behind the glass. So we can at least have face-to-face contact. We can at least introduce them to Daryl so that they will meet him on the outside and then get connected to the Reentry Success Center, the Reentry Network, housing, whatever it is, Daryl can help them get connected to. So we're excited to be back in. I don't think we'll be doing in-person classes for quite a while, but being on site actually helps us do our job better. So just wanted to make that announcement and let you all know that we're back in on a limited basis for face-to-face, but we're there.
Awesome. Patrice.
Well, I have quite a few announcements to make on behalf of ORJ and then a few others that are relevant to CAP. So maybe I should let other folks go first and then save mine to the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, Lila?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Lila Blanchard, and I am on the board, and I'm also an employee of Rubicon Programs. And so I wanted to let folks know that we are looking for a financial coach to work out of our Richmond and Oakland offices. So if you know of anyone, please spread the word. The posting is on our website, rubiconprograms.org, under the career section. And we are looking for folks who want to work to break the cycle of poverty for our participants and who have financial coaching experience and knowledge. Thank you all.
I'm not seeing anyone else.
Any other announcements?
Okay, so, well, first of all, ORJ is extremely excited to
Jermaine,
announce. I'm sorry? We are really excited, or I'm very excited to introduce to you all two of our newest members of our team. We have two planner evaluators that have just recently joined the ORJ office. Kimberly Asio, as well as Christina Jackson. They are on the call today. So we are really excited that we've been able to expand our data and evaluation team, and we have some solid, rock solid evaluators that will help us to begin answering a lot of the data questions that many in the community have with regards to our programs and services. So I certainly wanted to acknowledge them today. Either one of you are welcome to unmute yourself to say good morning, to say hello. They'll be joining meetings throughout their time with us. Obviously, may not be available for every CAB meeting, but they'll certainly be available on request.
Thanks so much, Patrice. Good morning, everybody. My name is Christina Jackson. As Patrice mentioned, one of the new planner evaluators. I'm on week 3 now, loving every day of it and happy to be here with you all. Thanks for having me.
Good morning, all. I'm Kimmy, Aseo. I just got married, so I'm not quite used to the whole last name change. But thank you, Patrice. I'm really happy to be here and be a part of the team and get everything started. I think today's only my 4th day in the office, so I'm still learning a lot, but really happy to be here with you all.
Great. And then a couple of other things. So CCP meeting, as you all may have heard, it has moved from November 9th to November 12th. So we'll be talking a little bit more about later today about some of the work that you all will be presenting during that meeting, but just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. And at that meeting, that will be your opportunity to present your budget proposals as well as your policy brief. And then separately for the next CAB meeting on November, November 3rd, excuse me, we will agendize report outs from your ambassador meeting. So just wanted to make sure that you guys kind of kept that at the top of your priority list there. And then lastly, ORJ is also excited that next Tuesday, we will be hosting our first of 3 trainings on evidence-based programming. As you all may have recalled in previous CAB meetings, we've shared with you our process of moving toward investing more into evidence-based programming and essentially shifting some of our contracting to those that are more performance-based. And so in preparation for that, we wanted to be sure that we have training and learning opportunities for our community providers, so they are sort of caught up to speed on what is evidence-based programming, how would you implement something like that, what are some of the common challenges that organizations face in implementing EVP. So that will be on October 19th. The following trainings too, just so you can get a quick preview, will be on November 9th and then November 30th as well. So I believe, well, an email alert did go out. So if you didn't receive it, if you're interested in attending, just let us know. Oh, and then Nicole posted the registration link in the chat for the first training. We will have a separate registration link for each training. So in advance of each training, emails will go out for that. And I believe that's it. That's it from us.
Any other announcements?
Good morning, everyone. Tomorrow, the Reentry Success Center will be hosting our Alpha Step Ahead ceremony from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. If you would all like to join and support our community and acknowledge their achievements over the course of the last 8 weeks. They've also, not only completed a lot of goals, they completed our 8-week comprehensive program. So we're really proud of them and all of their achievements, and you all are more than welcome to attend and uplift them on their special day. Thank you.
Sorry, one last thing. For those of you who've made some of these various announcements and you'd like us to circulate it around to folks, please feel free to email myself or Nicole, and we'll make sure to get that out. So any hiring announcements, GPS and Sheriff's Office. I don't know if you wanted to make a big announcement that at least some program is coming back into the jail, but anything that you would like circulated around, certainly let us know. We'll be happy to support.
Oh, I have actually a couple of announcements. I am also an employee of Health Right 360, the Reentry Network, and there's actually some openings with our agency. They are seeking a clinician, and all the things I'm talking about is posted. If you go on our website, there may be a blast coming out, but there is seeking a clinician and also a case manager who has, I guess, the minimum that they're registered as a drug counselor. So those are on our website, and we are looking for 2 positions.
Center Force also has an opening, and I think Cynthia Zabala forwarded to you, Nicole.
Yes, and I just I forward that to our
Okay.
network
All right,
this
great.
morning.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I'm back
course.
on. I can hear you guys now.
Okay, well, thank you. If there's no other announcements, we move on to item 2. Is this a chance, opportunity for public comment for any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board and not on the agenda? Seeing none. Item 3 was the approval of minutes from September 9th, the 2021 CAB meeting.
Are we moving to approve the notes from last meeting? Is that what we're reading for?
Yes.
Okay, well, I motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I second that motion. This is Lila Blanchard.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, can you lead us in the roll call vote, please, Nicole?
Sure. Ozzy,
Aye.
Shayla,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Jonte,
Aye.
Lila,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Nikenya,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
we see Terrence on yet or Devon? I'm not seeing them yet. And then Dale.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. Yeah, we apologize for any confusion there was as far as the date, the time of this meeting. I know in our last meeting, we were under the impression that this meeting this month was gonna have to be in person. Some things changed, and I'm just glad to see everybody's here, because I do know I was getting some emails from the public, folks trying to understand if they should have been at the administrative building on the 7th or here on Zoom. So item 4, which is attached, is we wanted to just discuss the Board of Supervisors adoption of resolution AB 361. And this is to authorize emergency teleconference meetings for 30 days and make related findings per government code, and what that kind of means. So I don't want to put you out there, Patrice or Nicole. I know you folks have done some research on this. Is kind of why it was the item. So I just wanted to, maybe one of you can explain it better to the board so we understand where we are.
Sure, and I'll do my absolute best because it was quite confusing to me as well. But so and I do want to echo your sentiments. We really do appreciate everyone's flexibility and our our sincere apologies for any convenience that the sort of changes may have caused. But we are at least very excited and happy that we can continue our meetings virtually, as we know that has been very convenient for many of us. During our last meeting, we did discuss that the executive order to amend the Brown Act, which would allow us to participate in public meetings that were held virtually, was set to expire before October 1st, right? And so we've been making plans to prepare ourselves to meet in person. Since then, or prior to October 1st, the governor signed AB 361 to authorize emergency teleconference meetings. But there were some stipulations within that legislation. And thankfully, the Board of Supervisors, on behalf of all advisory bodies, since it's affected all commissions, committees in the county, took on this resolution to allow us to then meet some of those stipulations. And so therefore, we don't have to, at this given time, worry about approving a resolution every 30 days, at least presently. So that is why we were able to then move back to our regular scheduled meeting, which was today, the second Thursday of every month, from 10 to 12 virtually. So post that passage of the resolution from the Board of Supervisors, and I'm not quite sure what the next steps are going to be from there, if any. So Nicole, if you have a little bit more information, or Jill, if you're on, please feel free to fill in any gaps that I may have left off.
And so it's my understanding, so every 30 days, I think that they had their meeting on October 5th, I think it was. So I'm assuming that the next board meeting that is early November, they will be looking at this as a standing agenda item to see if subsequent resolutions need to be made, because that'll be that 30-day mark. And so it's kind of a waiting game every 30 days, but I'm hearing just from folks that are closer to the health order than I am, that this is probably going to be subsequent resolutions for a while. Maybe Jill can speak more to the anticipation of how long, but I also wanted to specify it's a mandate to meet virtually, not an option, but we have to meet virtually. I learned that myself this week. So that just to clarify, this is mandating us to meet because it's this resolution that's been adopted is basically saying Board of Supervisors agree that this is a health risk for us to meet in person, and for safety reasons that we need to meet virtually. Jill, did you have anything else you would like to add?
No, I think that, well, yes, but I think you guys both did an excellent job. So the Board of Supervisors will be revisiting this every 30 days. It's likely to be on the November 2nd agenda. There is nothing more for advisory bodies to do. There's only 3 advisory bodies in the county which had to do it independently because they're a hearing body, but this is not one of them, thankfully. So there's nothing more for staff to do than to just wait for the word. But it's anticipated. And just to give an FYI, the town of Moraga had a discussion last night about this, and they did the math on their chambers, and they determined they could have their 5 council members and they could have 4 members of the public to keep this spacing up, you know, as it needs to be, which is why there's such a challenge with in-person meetings given the current health orders. So you guys are all good to go. The Board of Supervisors have also asked county staff, meaning the county administrator's office, to look at the option of sometime in the future allowing for hybrid meetings of all bodies in the county, because it has been such a great benefit to get public participation at our meetings virtually. So that's it. Thanks so much.
So is there any questions or comments from any board members? And if you have a question, I won't be answering it. Do you have any questions? Okay. With that, we'll move on to item 5. And this is going to be a voting item. And this is to recommend Mark Thomas move from the alternate member to a full voting member due to a vacancy that we had on the board. And just also the thought process of moving him up at this point was just the more recent membership to the board. As been mentioned before, this may be something that the board may try to look at going forward, is our attempt to have close to a even distribution of folks from all the 3 different sectors of the county. I know at this point it is a bit skewed from my vantage point, and I've said that I was kind of happy that we have a full board, and the preference would be that, you know, we have full membership, but for the board going forward, you know, that may be something we need to look at. So that's a recommendation that Mark Thomas moves to a full voting member.
This is Lila Blanchard, and I second that motion, Michael.
Was there a first?
Well, kind of, sort of, so let me go back. Then my motion is that Mark Thomas become a full voting member in CAB. That's what we're voting on, and Lila seconded. Or does she have to second it again?
No, I think she's good.
Okay, and then is there any public comment? Mark's not yelling heck no right now. We're good. All right, thank you. Could we do the roll call, please?
Sure. Ozzy,
Aye.
Shayla,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Jonte,
Aye.
Lila,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Nakenya,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
and Dale.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Okay, item 6, we have attachment 3 on there. And we're looking to approve the 22-23 AB 109 community programs budget proposal and narrative.
I can help present on this, but I do see that.
Excuse me, I'd like to make some comments, if I may, before we get started. Is that permissible?
Regarding the last item or this item?
Oh, regarding this item, I think these comments may be apropos prior to the actual discussion. I have some comments I'd like to make.
Let's do this, Crawford. Let's kind of lay out why it's kind of on the agenda, and then right away we kind of open it up to comments from the board members.
Okay, just really quickly. So just first thing to note is that this is, again, a draft budget proposal based on the discussions that we heard from you all during the last CAB meeting. So this is certainly subject to change, and this is open for discussion in case there are other amendments that you would like to have here today. So even though this is a voting item, you are always welcome to make adjustments as needed if you do not feel comfortable approving this for today. So I just want to start with that. So this is the budget proposal that was discussed during last CAB meeting. We have made some changes to the actual template that we would like to actually present to the CAO prior to it being included in the CCP packet. Reason being is because our community programs, as you all know, operate on a 3-year budget cycle, or operate from a 3-year contract rather. And so what we heard from you all last time is that you'd like to see a 3% increase for each year. And so the highlighted lines or columns that say 2022-23, 23-24, and 24-25 show that annual increase over the course of 3 years, with the total in 2022 to 25 total contract amounts across each service areas. Now, please keep in mind that in the column that says 21-22 contracted provider, that is only listed there to be able to show the 21-22 current funding allocations, right? What are our baseline, what's the baseline request compared to the modifications that you are requesting for the following year? This does not mean, the modifications that you're requesting does not mean that it will go directly to those providers, but it's just background historical information so that CCP is aware. As you know, we are coming at the end of our initial 3-year contract cycle. So all of the service areas that are listed here would have to go out to bid to bring on either new or existing contractors. I do want to note that at the line that says legal services, you see the annual increases from 22, 23 and onward. This is just slightly below the recommended increase from Bay Area Legal Aid, who I believe it's included in your packet as well, made a request to CAB to consider $275,000 per year to fund additional staff attorneys. So this is before you today to discuss and deliberate, and we're also happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Patrice. Crawford, you're on.
Okay, well, let me get unmuted here and let me figure out how to get lower the hand there. Okay, well, thank you. And I want to just make some comments here to maybe provide further thought as we go through this review process. As we review the various requests for funding, I would like for the board to consider underline requiring 20% of the funding we are provided for each agency to be allocated in some form or fashion to mental health activities. This recommendation, it's not a whim, but it's based on attending and listening at various meetings with RJOB, the Community Engagement and Funding Subcommittee, the RJOB Diversion Subcommittee, participating in interviews with potential CAB members from our OCEC subcommittee. Furthermore, listening to an excellent presentation at our CAB general meeting from the Mental Health Evaluation Team Officer from Pittsburgh. And finally, in our packet, recommendation number 5 from our Policy and Budget Subcommittee, which touches on mental health needs. Each of these aforementioned venues have discussed the need for mental health services. I believe it's now time to initiate rather than to articulate various needs by providing funding specifically earmarked for mental health. Thank you for the opportunity to present this viewpoint.
Do we have any other comments about this document? I do have a question. So am I understanding correctly, Patrice, that regarding Barry legal aid, the question from, and you can help me if that was a subcommittee or if that was the full CAB, the question of, would that need be across the entire length of the contract, where they were asking for maybe augmented staffing due to potential evictions coming out of once the moratorium was lifted?
Yeah, and forgive me, I can't remember if it was the full CAB or the subcommittee meeting as well, but there was a request from CAB members to reach back out to their legal aid to see if there was a possibility that with their request, if there was any way that serving reentry clients specifically could be billed to that increase, so that way there is some sort of data there as to how many folks who are justice involved would actually be serviced through this increase of funding. So I had not heard back from them just yet, but we did submit that question forward to them.
This is Lila, and I have a question. So I wanted to understand if Crawford's comments are coming out as a recommendation from the committee or from Crawford and how that played out in the budget that we're looking at right here.
If I might comment, Violet, that is my recommendation to the board moving forward as we are reviewing this document. And maybe for further clarification, this would include the CBOs and governmental agencies such as the DA's office, public defender's office, probationary office, and the sheriff's department.
Thank you, Crawford. And then, sorry, just one more follow-up question. So I'm curious as to how, how you landed on focusing on mental health services. I do know that housing and, a number of other services, come up as frequently. So just if you could say a little bit more about that.
Well, I think what was meaningful to me was Mark Thomas and a very simple comment. If your head's not right, nothing else is going to work. And that's for people that are, re-entering into society. So as a result, I took that to heart. And then I referenced the other venues that have also discussed mental health. As a result of that, that was basically the baseline for my recommendation.
And just so I understand, your recommendation is that each agency that's getting realignment funds, that their earmarked 20% has to go to mental health services of their budget?
Of the money we are providing, yes, sir.
I heard 40%. Was that 20%?
Oh, 20%. Yeah, 20.
And Crawford, this is Jonte. I definitely want to be very supportive. I think that mental health is a huge issue, specifically, with individuals that are re-entering into society. I'm just trying to just look down this list here and just see how 20% of, the funding will be allocated towards mental health services. It would look very different in accordance to, our CBOs and the sheriff's office and things like that, such as like, just using like sheltering as an example, we'll propose maybe like therapy or some other mental health services for individuals that are diagnosed with mental health disorders. Whereas, the sheriffs would probably more per se allocate like a designed LCSW or a licensed psychologist to work with individuals that are enduring mental health that they are actually coming into encounter with on the streets. Would that be correct? It would be something where we would have to maybe lay out a platform for them, because like just saying mental health services is kind of broad, correct? You're on mute, Crawford.
I'm sorry. It would be where we would be working with the agencies. Oh, come on. It would be where we would be working with the various agencies and maybe asking them to come forth with something that would be creative, but again, geared towards mental health.
Okay, in its entirety. So they would have to actually come up with their own design of how they're going to implement that fundings to assist individuals with mental health concerns.
Yes, sir. That is correct. So that, again, we are working with them, not dictating to them.
Hi, this is Dolores. I just wanted some center force. I just wanted to say that the structure of our program, because we are intensive case management and also substance abuse treatment referrals, that mental health is a key factor of our reentry population. And so we are equipped to make those referrals to the necessary entity and follow that client participant through the process. And it's already built in. So I would not support additional funds coming out of our existing budget to do additional work, but we would align ourselves with the support and making those necessary referrals to mental health programs and staying in contact with the referring agency.
Thank you for that, Dolores.
I saw that Dale had his hands up, but then it went down. I'm not sure if he had a question, and then I just had one last question.
No, thank you. I didn't have a question, and it seems to be covered in some of the comments, but it would be helpful for us if each recipient agency would just let us know how the money is being used, how the 20% is being used. And I agree with Crawford's point that we don't want to dictate to them specifics.
And my last question was just if there were any suggestions for organizations that that are not, focused on wellness or mental health, for how they would, reach to expand in order to basically, like, is partnership part of what you're envisioning? You're looking at in-house services. Can you say a little bit more about how organizations that are focused in a different area may incorporate services for mental health?
My concept would be partnership. If they want to do it internally, yes. But if they want to partner with an organization or partner with an activity that is geared towards mental health. And again, we want to challenge them to maybe possibly to move in that particular direction.
I try to listen carefully to your choice of words, Crawford, and the part when you said it's time to initiate rather than articulate. And I don't disagree with that whatsoever. But also the word was brought up with dictating. And to me, dictating 20% across the board, it doesn't seem like that. In my opinion, that's not the greatest focus, because again, some of these agencies, like for instance, I know that there is a direct line for AB 109 from probation. There is a unit with behavioral health that handles the AB 109. It seems like that would be a situation where we would be advocating for the augmentation or the continued strength of these programs that are already in place. And my understanding is there is a component of the next RFP for this 3-year that folks are really going to have to step up and articulate, especially in housing. And I don't know what the other one was, help me, Patrice, but the fact that we need to show that you're using evidence-based treatment and that you're addressing folks' needs. So the thought process, the need, I do not disagree with whatsoever. Across the board mandate seems, I don't necessarily agree with that.
a question then, Michael. Is it the number of the 20%, or is it the issue of asking our various agencies to put a priority on mental health?
It's not the idea that it's a priority, but just the fact that it seems like the whole realignment and just the differentiating between the agencies, the county, the CBOs. Yeah, it just seems that a straight across specifically for mental health. I don't know how it applies to every agency. I know Centerforce spoke up as well. If you're going to say, well, 20% of my budget is going towards mental health, I mean, what does that look like?
But maybe what that would look like is for them to come up with a program, or at least take some steps in that particular direction.
This is Nicole. I mean, I could speak from a sheltering perspective. Not sure if I agree with 20% of my budget being used for that right now. I kind of follow the same process with Centerforce as AB 109. As Michael mentioned, already has a process for mental health. So we pretty much partner. The POs submit their referrals, excuse me, I'm so sorry, submit the referrals over to mental health, and then my case managers work with them directly in order to make sure the clients have support. So we kind of have a process, work really closely with forensic mental health, and, you know, work with them, and they kind of, you know, the client signs a release, and we kind of partner and build a network around that client to ensure that they're getting the proper mental health care. So right now, from a sheltering perspective, the case managers don't really do it. We just work with the PO, and as long as the referral is submitted over for that mental health support, we kind of engage with them, and that's the process that we currently use right now.
Well, then maybe you're already doing
it right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
In a sense,
Yeah.
yes. Well, I had to say it the long way, Crawford, so I can sound like I'm engaging.
Yeah. No, hey, Nicole, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I didn't want to use the word "you're not the problem." What I wanted to say was that you are currently engaged. Let's get some others engaged to the extent that you are.
I mean, the best feedback I can ask you, I'm not ask or give when I start working on this, there wasn't an actual direct process. So it took for us sheltering to actually reach out to the mental health, forensic mental health, and start a communication process with them. It didn't start off that way. Referrals would get sent there and there was no communication at all. So it started with coming up with a process to allow the client to let us talk with them and get a clear understanding of what they're doing with them. So there really isn't a process in place. They don't tell you anything unless you engage it. So you do have to put in the footwork to make it work.
Okay, Nicole.
I agree with Nicole, and Centerforce is right there as well. That is the formal process, and makes sense to put it into the application process so that people will know. But 20% of a small budget, it's a lot when we supplement a lot to this program in-house as well, in kind.
Dolores, maybe there's some give and take here. Maybe we take budgets that are under a certain amount. You know, let's say, for example, there's a budget of $77,000. Well, maybe it's 10% under $100,000 or under $75,000. Those that are receiving funds above $100,000 or another number, then it becomes 20%. Again, trying to be flexible. Thank you.
Well, so we have that what Crawford put on the table, and we also were looking at the document that you have in front of us as far as voting on that. And there is the narrative. And so I know we discussed this in our full board meeting before. And we're looking at the COLA and the status quo And I see Jill has her hand up. You have a comment, Jill?
I can wait till the cab's done discussing this item, but I do have a lot of comments, and Janet has an awful lot of great things that she's saying in the chat. So it's at whatever point in time you're ready for public to talk. I'm happy to wait.
Okay. So members of the board, that's what we are kind of looking at here, where thank you, ORJ kind of broke this down to us, for us, that we are going into a 3-year contract. We don't know who is going to get those contracts at this time. And the recommendation from CAB was the 3% COLA. And it reflects that, showing us the 3-year allocation and breaking it down by what it would be for the first year of the 3-year contract. And then the modification request with the 3% COLA. And also to note that the mental health and the coexisting disorders is mentioned in our policy recommendations, although there is not a specific percentage or dollar amount attached to it. So is this something that we open the public comment first, or is it if we see if there's going to be a motion to vote on it and then do so?
Michael,
Go ahead, Crawford.
Michael, I'd like to see some public comment prior to us voting. Let's get as much input as possible.
Well, I was just asking for more of a process, so.
Yeah, I think technically we did have a couple of public members of the public that spoke up already, but just for formality, we should formally open it for public comment.
Okay. Who are you saying you were first, Jill, or are you saying Jana was first?
I think Jana should say all that she said in the chat, because what I'm going to say sort of piggybacks on what she said already.
Thank you, Jill. So really what I was just saying in the chat is, and we've experienced this for years doing reentry. When people step out the gates, if they don't have something to go to right away, and they have to pick up a phone and dial for service, they're not going to pick up a phone and dial for service. And they may not even have a phone with them in their property when they're released. So we do our best as the case managers inside to set up transportation for them, to set up, to make sure they have their treatment set up, to make sure that they're going somewhere when they step out of the gates. But in this last year, AODS has actually funded a dedicated person to join our GPS team. So now we have someone inside on the GPS team who's going to be screening people in person, getting their placement set up, and possibly even transporting them to treatment when they are released. We have always wanted to have that same kind of partnership with H3 for those that are housing insecure, to come in, do the housing assessments, identify what their needs, help line up a shelter bed so that when they get out, they can be transported by the core team to wherever it is they're going to land temporarily. Same with mental health services. If people want mental health, they need to call the access line when they're released. I don't know why, but if they're open to mental health in custody, it does not transfer to forensic on the outside. So they have to call a number to be served. And I guarantee you, they're not going to pick up a phone and call the minute that they're released. So what I was putting in the chat was, if there was any way that we could continue to build this this linkage with GPS and have other entities who are crucial to people's success, the housing folks, the mental health folks, the substance use folks, work together as a team to plan for this person's reentry and be present when they are stepping out to make sure they get connected to that next service. So the reason why I was saying that I supported Crawford's recommendations is because it doesn't necessarily have to be a 20% out of the budget, but just something that focuses on mental health, because the majority of the people now in GPS have mental health issues. And they're very open about it and they talk to us about it. And they say they have nowhere to go in the community. And so we're trying to make more successful reentries and have them go straight to what it is they need, the foundations that are going to make them successful. So for us, from our perspective, to keep them from coming back, because the ones that come back over and over and over again are those three: housing insecure, substance use, and mental health. And typically because they have nowhere to go. And the services in the county are very limited for people who are co-occurring mental health and substance use. And they fall through the cracks a lot and they just end up coming back right with us. So that's what I was putting in the chat. Thanks, Jill, for bringing that up. But I mean, that would be a huge help, I think, in the eyes of the folks who are returning back to the community.
So to piggyback on what Jana was saying, and just to give you a little perspective, I know that the issue of dual diagnosis is something that's being worked at the state level to ensure that the right kind of treatment can be provided. That's something that Suzanne Tavano, our behavioral health director, has been very, very active in at the state level. And knowing that there aren't enough dual diagnosis beds. This other part is that LaVonna Martin, who used to be the director of health, housing, and homeless, H3, is now an assistant health director. And not only is she over H3, but she's over detention. And that was a very strategic move because of all of the things that Jana just said, is to work on streamlining those processes and recognizing that many of our homeless end up cycling through our detention system. So that's a good move. I think the other piece is that the Measure X committee, which is the half-cent sales tax, just wrapped up their recommendations. And the number one gap and issue in the county that they identified is mental health. And so you have that as significant. Looking at that, this is the AB 109 population that this is supposed to fund primarily, and then anybody else in reentry afterwards. I think it's important to recognize that mental health piece applies across the system, including this one. And so Crawford's right on. I think the challenge is demanding 20%, and I know it's just a starting point and it's an ask, and it's very much appreciated noting this need. I think perhaps there's other ways to go about doing that, and I think Jana highlighted it so incredibly well. If there needs to be people who have connections with housing and people who need connections other than SUD, I think it's important to talk to both behavioral health and LaVonna to figure out if there's a funding need in their division so that they can provide to GPS what Fatima has in the AOD world. I think that's a good way to go about it. I think when you go at asking each individual budget for 20%, you're going to have far more pushback than you are if you identify what the need is and fill that gap. The other thing is, if you're asking for 20%, you have to have data to show what why there's a need within each one of those individual departments or budget asks. And so that takes a lot of work, and it would most likely exceed this budget cycle. But certainly a discussion with Suzanne Tavano and LaVonna about what Jana was just talking about is a great move forward, as well as highlighting the need for more expansive and appropriate mental health services to this population. I think is the significant key point that Crawford's bringing up. So I think that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? I know I'm also jumping to another agenda item, but our next item is to be looking at the CAP policy recommendation. And it is possible that some of the ideas that maybe you brought up, Crawford, or that was discussed can be part of the policy brief and not necessarily the budget proposal narrative, because we are looking at the CBOs in this one section here.
Michael, one concern, I really appreciate the flow, but it takes me back to those comments. We articulate, but we don't initiate. And yes, we can expand what we say in our proposals. And yes, we can nod our heads, but we haven't initiated anything. So just wanted to make that comment.
So this is a voting item, and question is this something that we can get a motion on, or with an addendum or caveats? Again, it is looking at pretty much the status quo budget with the 3% COLA for our CBOs.
Michael, this is Jonte. I raise a motion to approve the fiscal year 22-23 HB 109 Community Programs and Budget proposal and narrative with 3% per year for all our CBOs.
I second. Dale.
And I know we did it out of order, so is there any public comment before we vote? By the time I figure this out, Jill, it'll be time for me to leave. I'm trying. Is there any public comment? All right, Nicole, can you take us through the vote, please?
Ozzy,
Aye.
Shayla,
Aye.
Crawford,
Nay,
Dante,
Aye.
Lila. I think she stepped away for a second. Michael,
Aye.
Nikenya,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Dr. Terrence Cole on. No. Dale,
Aye.
okay, motion carries.
Nicole, I'm sorry, I'm back. Can you just read out what we're voting on, and can I vote?
Yes. Jonte made a motion to go with the budget proposal with the status quo to include the 3% COLA for each year of the contract. Did I capture that right, Jonte?
That is correct, Nicole.
Got it. And then it was seconded by,
Dale.
Dale.
okay. Aye. Please do record
Thank
that.
you.
Sorry for missing
Thank
that
you.
first call.
No worries. Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, moving along here, item 7 is to discuss and approve the 22-23 CAP policy recommendations. I know members, you've been looking at the old one from last year. we still are, well, I'm still excited the fact that a good deal of our proposals that the county implemented or they're still working on. So that's been great. This is what we've kind of brought together based on the input from the subcommittees and the members in the full cab. And so we wanted to discuss this and see if this is something we would vote on to move on in the position that's in right now, or with any amendments. First up, I would just look at, they are talking about in our recommendation 1 about continued investments in housing services. I propose right now that we discuss something about that transition from incarceration directly, maybe support in that direction. Again, this is a situation where we are putting support in certain areas without necessarily a specific monetary ask. Any comments on this document? Any comments, ORJ, which has been instrumental in helping us put this together?
See Lila's hands up.
Sure, Lila.
So Michael, yeah, I mean, I think that would be interesting and helpful if we could, put something in the recommendation number 1 specific to identifying solutions for folks coming out of incarceration without housing. I think we could, fairly easily add in some language there. And I was also hoping that we could look at the recommendation that touches on restorative justice. And, we had discussed this in our last programs and services subcommittee meeting. We had discussed the potential to actually ask for restorative justice circles to be available in the Marsh Creek detention facility and or West County detention. So, I know that this document is going to be voted on today and shared out soon. I wanted to see if folks in the subcommittee were behind me with adding that, and if the full cab would be comfortable with adding in a line about bringing restorative justice available to folks while they're incarcerated. And then the other point that I wanted to encourage, and maybe this connects to Crawford's idea earlier, is encouraging the different stakeholders, county departments, nonprofits, et cetera, to look for ways to incorporate restorative justice practices into their services. So yeah, just to summarize, adding in a brief line about restorative justice available to folks while they're incarcerated inside of those 2 detention facilities, and asking different service providers to incorporate restorative justice practices into their programming where able, and into the way that they deliver services.
that was all from your, I know you threw out to other members of your subcommittee if they had some other comments, but so just so that I understand correctly, that you would want part of recommendation to encourage the stakeholders to look at ways to for restorative justice services.
That's right, to incorporate restorative justice services into their offerings and practices into the way they deliver their services. And then the first point was a recommendation for restorative justice circles to be available for folks while they're incarcerated.
So it's your feeling that this is too general then, where we're actually recommending the expansion of diversion and restorative justice opportunities, inventory of existing programs and policy, and then implement programs where needed.
I mean, I like it as it stands, but I think if we can put in more specificity, there's probably more possibility that those ideas will move forward because they're, you know, clear suggestions.
Okay.
Or specific suggestions, I should say. Anybody from the programs and services subcommittee want to speak to that? Do folks want to add in more language, or are we good with this where it stands?
Actually good with, thank you for taking that part. I appreciate it.
Sorry, what was that, Nicole? I couldn't quite hear that.
No, I said thank you. I don't have anything to add. Sorry if my headset isn't right on my mouth. I said I appreciate, I'm good with where it stands. I said thank you. I don't have anything to add.
Okay, so you're good with it as it's written and don't feel like the additional verbiage that I mentioned should go in?
So now let me clarify. Let me step back. I agree that you should add the additional verbiage that you're asking to put in.
Got it.
Thank you for correcting me. Thank you.
No, thank you, Nicole. Sounds like that's it from our subcommittee today, Michael, unless other folks want to weigh in from the board or the public.
I'm sorry, you said that was on your subcommittee, or what did you say about your subcommittee? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that clearly.
So it sounds like our subcommittee would request those additions, and then, yeah, I don't know if there are additional comments or questions regarding adding that in from the larger board or the public.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other comments from the board? I do have a question though. So as far as restorative justice programs, isn't circles just one method of kind of going at this issue, or is that pretty much set that that's the only way you get, you do this?
Definitely not. I was leaning towards suggesting restorative justice circles for folks who are incarcerated, as that was a model that we saw demonstrated in San Francisco County. So I'm totally comfortable with restorative justice offerings for folks while they're in custody. And I think that the most common way of utilizing that practice is with the circles for folks who are incarcerated. And you make a great point. Yeah, we can just say restorative justice offerings, but I think that the recommendation would be, and the hope would be that this could be something that could be opened up for folks to access while they're incarcerated.
Okay. And I'll just submit that I feel like that it's addressed in number 2, but I do like when you're saying that the fact that we want to encourage that stakeholders incorporate restorative justice services in their realignment. So I like that piece. Anything else from the board? Let's see, Dante.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the time to speak to you. So the one thing I would just push on a little bit, push this body on, is being careful and meticulous around language. And so, and specifically what I mean in this context is, restorative justice is a particular intervention that's related to justice systems and their response to law breaking, right? So when someone breaks the law, you approach it in a traditional manner, but there's an alternative, which is restorative justice, because restorative practices are about restoring people to the state prior to a harm being caused. Now, there are harms that aren't law related, right? And so you can do circle keeping for, 2 colleagues who get in a shouting match and one cusses at the other, or some other transgression. And so, be careful if we're talking about restorative practices, because people have been, they've experienced trauma, they've experienced other things in which we want to do restorative activities to around health and wellness, and thinking that that's also going to have a net positive effect in terms of how people operate within institutions, etc. That's one thing. But when we go to restorative justice, we're talking about a particular use of that practice in the restorative, in the justice realm, right? So when someone steals something, you come and say, hey, how are we going to rectify this harm to kind of find equities between the 2 parties that were involved, and then use that process to remedy that situation. So just be, thoughtful and meticulous in exactly what you're trying to convey. And if you're talking about restorative justice, then, approach it from that standpoint. But if you're talking about restorative practices more generally, then of course, circle keeping is one method. There's other forms of reconciliation as well, mediation, reconciliation, and a number of other things, right? Which again, try to restore people to a place prior to experience some harm, whether that's person caused, system caused, or whatever it might be. So I would just kind of impress upon this body to take those thoughts into consideration.
Thank you, Dante. And then also for the board, I'm looking at it again to just understand too that we did talk about diversion as well. Kind of put diversion and restorative justice programs together. Any other comments on this?
All right, Michael, this is Jonte. I raise a motion to approve fiscal year 22-23 CAB policy recommendations, attachment 4, as is.
Do I have a second?
This is Dale. I'll second.
Is there any other public comment?
I just wanted to get some clarity when you said that you made a motion to accept as is. Does that mean you're making a motion to not include the additional comments that Lila had on restorative justice?
From my understanding, I think Michael touched on the recommendation portion, I think in 2 and 3, that as an outlook view, it's already inside of there. So
Got
as
it.
far as any specifics, I don't think that Lila had an issue with us keeping it as is. Is that correct, Lila?
So I was recommending the addition of a couple of comments in there now and then moving forward to vote with it. But, you know, yeah, there are two ways that this could go. And so, you know, taking into account the comments, you know, from Dante and the public and where things are at, you know, we can continue to work on this with the Programs and Services Subcommittee. I do think that more specificity, you know, helps to move towards the specific actions. As far as the, you know, the recommendations here, you know, it seems like there was consensus that we could ask organizations to, you know, to look to incorporate restorative justice practices and offerings. I'm comfortable with adding that. And, you know, the restorative, yeah, the specific request, maybe I could make that a little bit broader too, to have, to advocate to have restorative justice offerings for folks while they're incarcerated. And again, that would, you know, we would need to provide more definition for that. But as far as a recommendation, I would be, you know, comfortable with saying that, since it's broad and it's in line with what's already written.
So are you saying that statement about encouraging stakeholders to look at ways to integrate restorative justice practices, that's your amendment, but the specific thing about the jail, you're good with that not being there? Is that what I heard, or is that what I just thought?
Okay, here's my final offer. Here's my final offer. One additional statement that requests that restorative justice offerings be made available to folks while they're incarcerated, and that stakeholders look to incorporate restorative justice in their offerings. And I'm more married to the first part than the second part. What do you think, Michael?
Okay, I'm reading it again, and it seems like, I don't know. To me, it just seems like it's the ask is there, in the language that we have, but because it's asking our law enforcement and reentry service providers to adopt practices.
Okay, can we add to look to make restorative justice practices available to folks who are incarcerated?
Yes, and just to clarify, that first that first sentence of the second paragraph is commending. So it's not, it doesn't say recommend, it's commending. So acknowledging the reentry service providers and law enforcement agencies that have already adopted some restorative justice, either practice, policy, or a formal program. And then you're recommending that there is an expansion of diversion and restorative justice opportunities countywide, doing an inventory of existing programs and policies, implement programs where needed, and establish a policy that ensures that any adopted diversionary and or restorative justice practice and program make every effort to ensure equitable access.
So are we, what the recommendation then, Lila, that part of our recommendation is that there is some in custody restorative practices
Yes, yes, please. Just that works.
as an addendum,
Mhm.
as an edit or addendum.
As an edit.
All right, so
And I think that the other part is implied. It's not specific that we're asking, but yeah, it's good enough. Yeah, we can add the in custody piece.
so then we would have an amended motion. I know, Dante, you did the motion before. Are you comfortable with?
Yes, I am, Michael. Nicole, with that amendment. With that amended
Okay.
sentence.
Got
Thank
it.
you. Thank you for the clarification, Lila.
And Dale, do you still second?
Yes, thank you.
I also have
Okay.
further comments. Michael, I did hear you. I was taking notes of some of the potential amended language, and I did hear you speak of wanting language in the first recommendation to include transition from custody to community. So my assumption there is that you want some language around housing, either housing solutions or some sort of continuum of housing support that will provide maybe immediate housing placement from custody to the community.
You're muted, Michael.
Michael, you're still muted. I think we all thought you were thinking.
Are we good? Are we have with these amendments?
I think Patrice posed the question to you, Michael, and everything you said you were on mute, but
Yeah, no, I was saying, are we good with the amended motion where for recommendation one, we would, with the motion would be to accept this with the addition of something talking about the streamline of transition from incarceration to housing. And then also the amendment that Lila recommended where we're asking that there would be some diversion, restorative justice practices in custody. So let's try this again. Is a motion, Dante, you still good with that?
yes,
Good.
Nicole, please add on also Michael's amended context
Yes.
for that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
Dale, do you still second?
Yes,
All right, with that, is there any public comment? All right, can we vote, please?
Yes. Ozzy,
Aye.
Shayla,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Dante,
Aye.
Lila,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Nakenya,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Dale.
aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank
Oh.
you.
So like, we're gonna actually get to our report outs real quickly. We have time. We didn't have time last week. So looked at Board of Supervisors, PPC and CCP to determine what was on those agendas that are pertinent to CAB. The PPC, the 827, there wasn't anything. I think that was the last one. CCP on September. Oh, PPC's next. Oh, PPC. Oh, Board of Supervisors first. Okay. Let me do Board of Supervisors real quick. I didn't see anything on the 7th. On the 14th of September, they adopted the fiscal year 21-22 budget as recommended by the county administrator. On 9/21, I didn't attend, so maybe somebody to know what actually happened where, because I know the eviction moratorium was on there. If that was continued, that might be pertinent to some of our realignment folks. It was not.
No, the eviction moratorium was not continued, but what they did do was opt into the state funds because there's overages in the state funds because of certain jurisdictions haven't spent there. So what we did was opt in to accept any additional money into our rent program. So the eviction moratorium was not continued.
Thank you, Jill. And then on the 5th of October, that's where we had the resolution that we talked about to authorize the board and subcommittees to continue teleconferencing. And I didn't see anything on the 12th.
I'm sorry, are you talking to me? I've got it.
No, I was done.
Okay.
Roy, from the PPC meeting, last one was on 8/27, and their agenda really had nothing to do with us, community warning system and some animal services. So nothing for us.
The last one was at the end of September. And yeah, there was nothing for you guys. That was not 8/27, 9.
Oh, 9/27. Yeah, thank you. And the CCP on September 3rd, that's when Dale and Mark were appointed officially. So we weren't able to report that out, I don't think, at our last meeting. And then there was also a presentation with the draft proposals for the AB 109 evidence-based reentry programs. So ORJ has, in a few public meetings, kind of got that information out. There are some changes with the RFPs going forward for this next budget cycle. And then also at CCP on that day was the realignment revenue report from the CAO's office. And that's all I found on that. Listen to the report on the Outreach Community Engagement Committee Subcommittee on the Kenya.
Yes, give me 1 second. Let me pull up my notes. So hello, everybody. This is the reports from the subcommittee that we held on September 21st. One of our main focuses has been trying to get the applications out. We have, excuse me, the 4 West County cities were contacted, and they will assist in sharing our messaging and passing out applications or trying to reach out to people when necessary or when they could to try to help us out we have a higher need for West County individuals. And I wanted to request from the entire cab that we all kind of pitch in where we can to, excuse me, I don't know what my voice is. To try to recruit people, especially from that area. We had a couple of ideas for people who may, deal with the public on any kind of social justice website or neighborhoods, regular people. I think we did a good job circulating it within the county, but I think expanding it a little bit more would be more fruitful. We also discussed a contact at Diablo Valley College. This is a representative who is able to also share our applications with students, especially in the social justice part of the school. There's also updates from the senators and assembly members. So calls were made to each office and contacts have been established to send our messaging to them. There's also update regarding the Board of Supervisors office. Everybody has been called and we've received cooperation in sending out our messaging there as well. And we also talked about the recruitment flyers. Let me see. We wanted to add a little bit more, like modify the words to reach out to more people so that if they don't have any incarceration in their background, they don't automatically assume that this isn't for them. So to kind of make it a little bit more welcoming in the wording. That was something that came up. We also talked about the application, and I kind of went over this one a little bit, but sharing it to public meetings. And I went over the interview questions or the recruitment flyers. We wanted to tweak those words a little bit. So the miscellaneous, the last was, we were going to send flyers to the Contra Costa County Education Office. It sounds like we were going to start trying to work on a workbook of norms for the board members on things to do at the next retreat. And I believe that covered everything that we discussed. If there's any questions.
Thank you, McKenna. And Lila, you have to report out on program and services?
Yes, I sure do. So we had a wonderful presentation, insightful presentation from Mark Thomas. Was the beginning of our last meeting for the Programs and Services Subcommittee. And he was speaking to his experience in working with the San Francisco, basically the San Francisco sheriff, and sharing out with us, just pulling up the notes here. SF Sheriff's Department implemented restorative justice programs. And so we spent quite a bit of time. We viewed their website as well as a portion of the video and learned a little bit more about the actual Michael Markham, the assistant sheriff for SF County, who was formerly incarcerated himself, and a number of the restorative justice practices that they had implemented. And, you know, the last point on our notes there was that they were offering restorative justice circles within the facilities there. And we agreed that, to our knowledge, that that had not been taking place here in Contra Costa County. That was one of our big takeaways. We also spoke about advocating for expanding funding for housing beyond the AB 109 population. We know that the AB 109 folks is a portion of the reentry community, and how big of a need there is for folks who don't specifically qualify for AB 109 to also have access to more housing services. Anybody else want to add anything from our last programs and services subcommittee meeting? Those were the highlights, and yeah, also more additional information in the notes.
All right, thank you, Lila. Policy and budget, Jonte?
I'm sorry. I hate to be rude. I have another meeting going on and I have an amendment to the minutes. Would you mind if I jumped in and just told you my amendment so that I could jump into my other meeting, because I have to give a report?
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, sorry. On the last bullet point where I'm quoted in those minutes, it says, Jill Ray, historically, the county has advocated for this population to be placed into entry-level jobs within the county departments. It actually is the county has hired Welfare to Work, which was the title of the program at the time, recipients as part of the program. And so I was just likening that we have worked with programs that have helped people move into working, but it wasn't this reentry population, it was the Welfare to Work population. So I just need to make that correction.
Do you want to email it to me? Because we're not approving these minutes in this meeting. This is just a kind of a draft for the report out, but we'll be reviewing and improving these minutes in the next programs and services meeting.
I will do that. And thank you, everyone. I have to jump off.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, Jonte.
Yeah, I'm up. Last policy and budget subcommittee, just some of the highlights that we discussed. Obviously, it was the fiscal year 2022-23 budget proposal and narrative, in which we approved today already. It's just really just going with the baseline requests, and also just the status quo as far as from our CBOs. We're keeping in mind all of the information that Patrice provided for us earlier, just surrounding it being, you know, a template. As of right now, we actually don't know what CBOs will be approved for the RFP. Definitely the 3% that was on there for the budget proposal and narrative. We came to a conclusion that that was essential for our CBOs, so that was included in there. And we discussed our talking points as far as waiting for today in order just to finalize the recommendations as far as our talking points will go for our ambassador meetings. So I think that was really about it as far as program policy and budget goes. Anyone from policy and budget subcommittee?
I think you hit all the points. Thank you.
Most of the main ones, right? Okay. That's it for policy and budget, Mike.
All right, pardon the delay there. I thought I had jumped off of Zoom there for a moment. All right, thanks for your report in. And McKenna did put in that they changed the date of their upcoming subcommittee meeting. So folks that are attending, look for that. Thanks. And speaking of meetings, our next meeting is scheduled for November 17th at 2 p.m. is our next CAB meeting. Our CAB meetings was running up against the holiday, the 11th. We would have been scheduled for that 11th. And ORJ, help me on the 12th. Is that when our report's going in?
As far as them being due to us,
For us moving them up to CCP?
I'm sorry, what reports are you referring
Isn't
to?
all our stuff due to CCP on the 12th? Is that what our?
So the reschedule of the 12th doesn't really change the deadline too much, but October 29th is when we need our staff reports for policy brief and budget proposal. That's separate from what I need from everyone for the full body, which is on the 17th.
Got it. So the stuff that we voted on.
Yes, I have to get that into the system on the 29th of October, the Friday.
Got it.
But we don't want to wait until Friday, so we'll be following up with Michael, you and Jonte on working offline to put a big bow on it and get it submitted.
Excellent. All right. Is there any other comments from the board? Before we
Maybe
move
you wanted to
on?
mention the agenda planning meeting on Monday, since I have everyone on the call. It's only for those that are chairs of subcommittees. I sent out an email to the chairs and Michael yourself that we are having that on Monday, but it's going to be focused on, well, it was intended to be focused on the any amendments that came out of the policy brief and budget proposal. But yeah, we are going to have that, I guess. But if people want to reply back to my email, if you have additional topics to discuss, otherwise your attendance is not needed.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And we will be adjourning until our next meeting, November 17th at 2 p.m. And we're adjourning at 11:51. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.